Americans, what do Europeans have every day that you see as a luxury? This is only really true for Southern Europe, but cheap wine by the glass, cheap coffee, and pastries. Cafes in the U.S. are marketed as very trendy, and if you want a pastry and a coffee, you should be ready to pay like $8, $10. In most of Italy, Portugal, and Spain, you can get coffee and a croissant for like €3. 6 weeks vacation, extra pay just for vacation, at least in Germany, government health care. My husband, we're Canadian, did his postdoc in Finland. When he was signing his contract, they said, "You'll get 6 weeks paid vacation and you have to take it." He was shocked. He had friends elsewhere doing postdocs who were doing 14-hour workdays, 6, 7 days a week, no vacation, let alone paid vacation. One of the years when he was nearing the end of his cycle, HR reached out and in a panic said, "You have 3.5 days that you have to use, unbeknownst to us." So we booked a trip for an extended weekend away. I miss that. And it's something we both negotiate when starting new jobs. Rather take a bit of a lower salary with more vacation. 1 week after 2, 3 years in most positions is insanity. Time. I spent time abroad in Italy for school, and there was just so much less of a rush everywhere. Oftentimes, the latest person to my classes, we were professors. Everyone really took their time, and I didn't really feel the bustle of constantly going somewhere when I was there. I mean, dang, the village my apartment was located shut down for a few hours in the afternoon so the shopkeepers could go have lunch. It was wild. Affordable universities. Our daughter is going to university in Scotland. Our U.S. friends always respond with shock at the luxury of going overseas for school until I tell them it's 1/2 the cost of an equivalent U.S. college. That includes travel expenses. Readily available and reliable public transportation. Local bakeries with wonderful fair-priced food readily available on their walking commute. 2+ weeks long vacations. I've had to reach to our contact at HQ in Europe for support and have legit been told to ask someone else because he was going to Switzerland skiing for 3 weeks on holiday. But here I am getting nervous about taking more than 3 days off in a row because I don't want to come back to 500+ emails. They can travel between different countries in Europe without spending days driving or flying. Bathroom stalls that actually go to the floor. I don't need to know what shoes the guy taking a Sheech *T next to me has on. Healthcare, life-work balance, walkable communities, great train service. Paid parental leave. I had used all of my leave with my first kid, so when I had another kid a year and a half later, I was back on my feet teaching in under 6 weeks. Dogs get better treatment than working mothers. Cities designed for walking, and public transit designed to make travel between major cities' countries without a car incredibly seamless. I don't really drive much, and hate having to get around by car, especially while traveling. Being able to walk, bike to most important destinations is great. Being able to travel by train to another city or country without spending the entire ride thinking I should have just rented a car and driven or dealt with the huge delays of airport security instead is even better. I spent a month in Switzerland for work a few years ago, and it's more than that, though. The roads are designed to make biking as seamless and unobtrusive as possible, in a way that would never even really be explored here. I'd never consider biking in the city while I was in Boston because I don't want to be in the middle of traffic weaving between cars and pedestrians, and I think most people feel the same, and that's why bike lanes are fairly underutilized. But it was very different over there in a way that is hard to express unless you have experienced walking around / biking around an American suburb, even a city, versus a European one. Lots of people I've talked to put it up to people just bike more in Europe. But no, they don't understand. People bike and walk more in Europe because their cities are just built differently in ways that are hard to express.
If you could place any object on the surface of Mars purely to confuse NASA scientists, what would it be? Taking notes. $200, $000, a parachute, and the body of D.B. Cooper. A NASA spacecraft, one that NASA has no record of, like something they've never built. but that has NASA logos all over it and clearly has a NASA origin, just not our NASA. A big map of Earth with several points of interest marked on it. I'm a geologist, and I can confirm that just placing the wrong type of rock would fuck up science for like 30 years. I often pick up rocks that I know only occur in specific areas and leave them somewhere that would be naturally impossible in the hope that it will break a geochemist's mind when they find it. That S design we all drew in middle school. Liquid water in a mason jar. Scientists have found evidence of a 2012 barn wedding on Mars. A white plastic lawn chair. With a slight chip in one of the legs so they'd be scared to sit down. A page from a Martian newspaper, pondering the possibility that there might be life on Earth. A monolith with a QR code to scan and rickroll. Well played. Now we just need to wait for NASA to send a rover with speakers and watch them blast Rick Astley on the Red Planet. The missing pieces of the Rosetta Stone. Statue of Liberty half buried in the ground. An exact copy of the Mars rover, or whatever they used to discover it. A picnic basket, blanket, food laid out with a note. Honey, I forgot the potato salad. I'll be back in 20 minutes. And for good measure, a 1953 Buick. To complete the scene, footprints that walk away and just disappear about 50 yards away. A fully crewed, by preserved corpses, skeletons of course, Viking longship. Matt Damon. An Egyptian obelisk, inscribed with mathematics relating to something like a spatial fold engine or warp drive. Wacky inflatable tube man on the highest peak. Hi, I'm Al Harrington from Al Harrington's Wacky Waving Inflatable Flailing Arm Tube Man Incorporation here to let you know we have an overstock of wacky waving inflatable flailing arm tube mans and need to clear them out now and passing the savings on to you. The fossilized remains of non-human biped with a sign that says no more nuclear testing. A partially vaporized radioactive manhole cover. ETA. Thanks, kind internet strangers, for the awards. Monoliths describing how Karen is actually a big interspace gate or something. Then watch happily as the globe panics, then sets up expeditions for Karen, only to find nothing there. A pyramid combining all the different appearances of the different pyramids on Earth. Weird rock formations of molecules that are inherent to life. They'd work for years getting into the nitty-gritty of the calcium deposits which weirdly resemble coral on a seabed. After confirming with xenobiologists that this was indeed the truth, topologists would begin to map out truly the extent of these ancient coral reefs. There would be a meeting that is conducted, and a 3D model pulled up showing the overall terrain. Some junior topologist, excited to present his first findings, would zoom out to show a crowd of people the words, spelled out in coral, "D's nuts." A SING saying, "Congratulations humans of trial E34786/B0A. You have reached the end of the simulation. Every SING of your civilization will be erased and your planet will be resetted. Every trace of your existence will be removed on an atomic level. Afterwards, the next batch of humans will start with a new scenario. Thank you for participating." Or just to have some fun, "No Easter eggs up here. Go away." But like in hieroglyphs or something. Life-sized model of the Millennium Falcon.
Psychologists of Reddit, have you ever been genuinely scared by a patient before? What's your story? A very sweet, mostly blind teenager who was going through his first psychotic break and had a love of martial arts, taekwondo if I remember correctly, was really, really, really good at it. He couldn't see and would practice kicks, and at one point, accidentally kicked one of the reinforced shatterproof windows in the quiet room, think padded room without the padding. Turns out they were shatter-resistant. He destroyed it with that kick. Why those particular details? Because he would practice his kicks everywhere, was mostly blind, and the one time he flipped up to practice one and I was walking around the corner, it came literal centimeters from my face, and I felt the impact of it against the air, like a physical force bashing into my face. Sweetest kid in the world, he would have been horrified if it had connected, because things would have broken. A lot of things. He also grabbed my arm once in a suddenly firm grasp and asked if I wanted to do taekwondo with him. No, I did not. Not a psychologist, but I used to work in a psych ward as security. We had this huge guy with schizophrenia detained in 1S, which is the ward for those who have been legally determined to be unfit and are not allowed to leave. When I say huge, I mean he was like 6'5", gigantic muscles, and he used to be an MMA fighter. Real nice guy when medicated, but when in psychosis, he was not someone you'd want to go toe-to-toe with. We would sometimes have to call police to help us deal with him. One officer would arrive, take a look at him and go, "Nope," and call for backup. So one day I was guarding the entrance to 1S. He was doing fairly okay, so he wasn't confined to his room and was allowed to walk around the supervised communal space. He puts down his magazine, goes into his room, and then walks out naked. Dude walks up to me, stands about an inch away, and looks down at me. I mean way down, as I'm only 5'3". He tells me he's leaving. I asked if he would like some shoes or a gown. He says no, he's leaving and I better step aside, so I did. You better believe I stepped the aside and let him walk out. I followed him at a safe distance through the psych ward, where everyone basically pinned themselves against the wall to get away, and out into the parking lot while on the call with the cops. I can't leave the grounds, so once he was off hospital property, I could only inform the police to which way he was running, which was down into a heavily populated downtown core. Not even 15 minutes later, he comes back and walks back into the lobby of the ward and asks for me. He wants shoes, after all. Not a robe, but shoes. So I bring him shoes to prevent him from getting violent, and off he goes again as I repeat the process, following him to the edge of the grounds, and calling the cops. Cops bring him back and put him into his secure room. However, once he is in there, they are not allowed to restrain past a certain point. So the whole security team assembles, which is me and about 5 men. They decide I'm to hold a leg as I'm small, and legs are easier to restrain. So we go into the room in a triangle formation with me as the last to enter. He must have missed when I came in the door, because he started screaming that I was a shapeshifter and freaking out. It took us about 30 minutes of restraining him before he was medicated enough to calm down. Fast forward maybe 2 years later. I'm no longer security or live in the town, but I went for a metal show. I joked to friends that I was worried someone I had dealt with in the hospital might recognize me and have bad memories. Lo and behold, there is MMA fighter taking shots at the bar. Now I know that he shouldn't be drinking with his meds, but hey, it's been 2 years, and I don't know anything about his current health status, so whatever. I still tried to avoid him in case he remembered my shape-shifting. At one point, our lines to the bar coincided, and I ended up standing next to him. He looked up at me, looked down, and then looked back up and stared. Hard. I could tell he recognized me, but I could also tell that he was trying to figure out from where. The entire night I could see him lingering around me, staring with this befuddled expression on his face. I was a tad scared. I'm a therapist, but not a psychologist, if that matters. I used to work in a facility for kids and adolescents with pretty intense behavioral issues. Even when a client was aggressive, I was usually able to de-escalate them, and I generally didn't feel unsafe. In fact, most of the time I was concerned about their safety during outbursts. With one exception, I had a client that was pretty strong and prone to intense tantruming. This client was acting in a way that was unsafe, had a plan to seriously hurt another resident, I think, so I had to put them on restriction, within staff eyesight at all times. Their response was to run up to me and attempt to choke me. Luckily, the staff got there in time and prevented this kid from seriously hurting me. On another occasion, this same client also took apart their curtain rod in their bedroom and swung it at my head. I dodged in time. Oddly enough, this client and I had a pretty good relationship the other 99% of the time, and I generally enjoyed working with them. Clinical psychologist here. I used to work in a prison and did a parole evaluation for an inmate that was a high-ranking gang member in a national gang. By his account, he was the highest ranking in the state, In fact, he was placed in that prison to hold his people accountable and keep the peace. He had a long, violent record and was, in my opinion, a genuine psychopath. Part of the eval is discussing the crime and assessing remorse and whatnot. He was so clinical in his description of how he tortured and left this guy to D*E over an unpaid debt. Live by the sword, D*E by the sword, was his phraseology for the act, like it was nothing. He was also very nonchalant about his ability to take care of his business while inside. I believed him. He had only spent 18 months of his last 15 years outside of prison. My recommendation was not to parole him. There were various factors that I gave, and in the end the parole board went with my recommendation. So the part that actually scared me, this was my first parole eval, was this guy's ability to affect the world outside. He could have sent someone to my house if he wanted to. I had no doubt about that. More experienced psychologists told me not to worry about it, that he knew the score and wouldn't take it personally. I had a hard time buying it. I was running a long-term offender group a few months later and he was part of it. After the first group, I pulled him aside and asked if we were good. He smiled at me and told me not to worry. I did my job and he didn't blame me for writing what I did because it was true. He went on to be a really insightful and active group member. Clinical psychologist in training here. I've never been afraid, but my friend had a client once who made her extremely uncomfortable. Without revealing any information that could break confidentiality, I will say that he had issues with masturbating too much and not doing much else, and at one point asked my friend if they could watch porn together in the next session so he could show her what he does. At another time, he talked about his masturbation habits while touching his D***K through his pants a bit. Totally inappropriate behavior, obviously. This client had lots of other issues, but when these things came up, her supervisor took her off the case because it wasn't suitable for training and my friend didn't feel safe.
Truck drivers, what is the craziest thing you have seen looking down into passenger vehicles? There was a dude playing the violin while driving in rush hour traffic. So many people hitting a bowl and even rolling joints while driving. Women doing their makeup at 80 miles per hour. 60-plus-year-old man reading the newspaper on the steering wheel. Guy in a beat-to-shit minivan with a massive pig in the rear. Like at least 300 pounds. Man on motorcycle with dog and backpack. Young boy in the back seat with a tablet on Pornhub. My friend was a truck driver. He said once he was in a traffic jam, so he was looking around, and the guy next to him was jerking off. What's even crazier, he said the guy waved at him with his other hand. Saw a lady reading a book. At night. With a flashlight. By laying it on the steering wheel. While doing 70 miles per hour on the highway. I'm not a truck driver, but when I was moving to Texas I drove one of those big haul box trucks. Saw a lady watching a movie on her iPad, which leaned up on her steering wheel. I've been very cautious driving in Texas since then lol. My grandma rides on the back of my grandpa's motorcycle and reads. Just so casually. 75 miles per hour? Oh, perfect time to pull out the book. I was driving a box truck into Pittsburgh a few months ago and I was in the passenger lane, and this SUV comes flying up in the left lane, but then hovers right next to me. After a few seconds I figured he must be trying to flip me off or something and thought I must have cut him off or something. But no. I looked down and the driver locked eyes with me and I noticed he had his dick as his hand and he was masturbating. Once he was satisfied that I had seen his dick, he sped off. For your information, I'm also a male. Lady in the car ahead of me kept looking down at the seat beside her, literally every 10 seconds or so. I was thinking, geez, how often do you need to check that map? This was way before cell phones. She pulled into the right lane to get on the expressway, and as I pulled up on her left and glanced over, I realized she was knitting. Needle in each hand as she held the wheel. Paper pattern lying on the seat. I was on the second floor of a double-decker bus and saw a goat in someone's living room through their window. You didn't ask me, but I have nowhere else to share that. Not a truck driver, but once saw a dude playing the trumpet while driving. Not a euphemism. Actually playing an instrument. Saw a guy dressed as Santa Claus doing this in Louisiana middle of the summer. My personal favorite was a man in a nice dress shirt and tie who was not wearing pants, eating cereal out of a large Tupperware container. My theory is he didn't want to spill milk on his pants while driving. According to my husband, lots of naked women, dudes jerking off, and roadhead. The best is parents teaching their little kids the arm pump to get trucks to honk. While driving an old pickup truck past me, the guy was getting a blowjob, a few miles down the road at the next exit. They both were out of the pickup and the lady was throwing up. Was driving past a car and had to do a double take. 4 college-aged guys all wearing onesies, and either had a pacifier or a bottle in their mouths. And it looked like they were wearing diapers too. I was like, huh? There's something you don't see every day. I saw a woman in a convertible scratching like she had an ant nest in her knickers. We were stopped at lights. She stopped and really slowly looked up at me. I just smiled at her. I'm sure that was the longest wait at a red light in the history of traffic lights. Passenger recording people in the back seat having sex. A duck with a seatbelt on. Someone grilling what appeared to be hot dogs in a minivan. Passengers hitting the driver. Been driving truck for 10 years. When I got my license, I'd hear guys tell all the stories of how many women have flashed them. Let me tell you, in the last 10 years I've seen exactly 0 titties while driving. So I've decided that either other truck drivers are full of shit, women aren't as wild as they used to be, or I don't pay enough attention. I asked a guy once about this, and he told me it happens more on the West Coast. If that's true, then it makes me wonder why West Coast women are wilder than East Coast women. I have personally flashed my titties at a truck driver. I'm a fat hairy dude. Truck driver lost his shit laughing. Made my day. Edit, I live on the West Coast. When I was in college about 20 years ago, my boyfriend was driving and I casually sat in the passenger seat with my tits out as we drove past the semi-truck. I put my shirt back on and we continued to drive. About 15 minutes later we hear a loud honk of a semi-truck. We proceeded to pass a line of, I kid you not, 5 or 6 semi-trucks, and each driver was looking out their window at me. The lead truck was a very angry-looking woman who also looked out her window at me. It didn't hit me until we were further down the road that they radioed ahead that I had my tits out, lined up down the highway. Fucking alerted the other semis we were coming by honking and then looked to see. I absolutely regret putting my shirt back on and not giving them all what they were looking for. I saw someone writing a manual letter while eating a sandwich. Drove with his knee. Don't know how the hell he stayed in a lane. A former coworker was a truck driver at one point. He said he once saw some guy shaving while driving in a convertible. He emphasized that the driver had slathered his face in shaving cream and was using a regular Gillette or whatever TF blade with a big bowl of water right beside him in the passenger seat. The usual half-naked people, all kinds of eating foods, even a guy on the Harley steering with his feet while leaning back against the passenger backrest. Never seen anyone having sex, but most of my runs were early morning and very rural western states. Been flashed by college girls in a Jeep, watched a guy get blown in his new car for 30 miles, watched a young woman in traffic with one foot on the dash, her skirt around her chest and trying to rub the hair off it in the fast lane. Yeah, people do shit in cars all the time. One time I was driving back to Calgary from Golden very late at night, like midnight. So I'm driving along and my grandmother calls me. I answer and start chatting with her as I drive. I'm along a pretty boring stretch after Banff, so the phone call is nice to fill the void. Anyway, I'm cruising along at 100 and I gain on this pickup truck and decide to pass it. After I get back in the right lane, the guy speeds right up to my ass and starts flashing his high beams. I say to my grandma, "Hold on, grandma, this car behind me is trying to get my attention." So this guy starts to pass me and I just keep my eyes forward on the road and let him pass, but he never does. I notice out of the corner of my eye he is just sitting right beside me, annoyingly cruising at my exact speed. So I look down and can't see anything other than headlight because it's too dark. I slow down, he slows down. I speed back up and he follows, just matching my speed. So I just keep my eyes forward, but then I notice his interior light is flashing. I look down into his window and the light turns on. Full-out naked dude driving the truck, furiously masturbating. I just say, "Grandma, I've gotta let you go, this guy's jerking off," and hang up. So I give him the old "what the fuck" Riz, and he just speeds off. Really ruined my night. Can't believe I said that to my grandma. Edit. Apparently this is way more common than I thought.
Truck drivers, what's a creepy story you've got from the middle of nowhere? I was driving through eastern Washington on some state roads. There were no rest stops or cities, but I had done the route enough to know there were these massive dirt areas every 40 miles where you could park safely away from the road. I decided to call it a night and closed my blinds and laid down to watch something on my phone. After roughly an hour, I hear someone try to open the driver's side door. I haven't heard any vehicles on the road the whole time I'm parked, but I get up to peek out the curtains. As I'm looking out into the blackness of the driver's side window, I hear them try the passenger side door. I peek down from the top of the curtain, but can't see anything, so I start the truck and kick on the lights. I'm fairly freaked out at this point, so I'm still not opening the curtains, but peeking through gaps. Nothing. Nobody is standing near either of my doors or parked within sightline. I take a deep breath and close the sleeper curtains too, because for some reason that's going to make things better, right? After laying back down and convincing myself that something blew against the truck and it only sounded like the doors, it was fairly windy outside and a lot of flat ground. I hear what sounds like someone trying to pry open the vents on the sleeper. The door handles start clicking again, and the truck starts shifting like someone is climbing on it. I hit the little alarm button in the sleeper hoping to spook them off, but it does nothing but add to the noise of door handles, fingers tapping on windows and chassis, and the hiss of air coming out of the suspension. Then suddenly it stops. A few moments where I can only hear myself breathing and my heart pounding before I hear another truck approach and then drive by. I spent the next few hours waiting for whatever it was to come back, but it never did. In the morning, I couldn't find any footprints or damage to my truck, but on every window were tiny human-looking handprints, like a toddler had licked their hand and stuck it to my window over and over. Driving through an abandoned section of Baltimore at 3 a.m, my CB radio turned itself on and crackled for a bit. Out of nowhere, some voice over the radio said in a deep southern drawl, "I ain't got no panties on." I could see up and down the interstate for miles and saw not one set of headlights. My dad drove a truck between Edinburgh and London and tells this story often. He was driving down the motorway and looked to his right, saw a woman with a Miss Trunchbull bun, as he describes it, staring at him with a terrified expression from a car next to him. Before he really knows how to react, the car pulls off at the next exit, and my dad, although shaken, carries on. About half an hour later, a different car with a different driver pulls alongside my dad, with the same woman in the passenger seat, with the same expression on her face. My dad thinks F*** this, and plans to pull into the next services to report, as even if it's nothing. Misunderstanding. Better to be safe than sorry, right? Anyway, the car disappears before he can get any details, plates, etc., and he thinks there is no point calling the police with no details, so he carries on driving. Literally about 4 hours later, almost in London, Yet another car pulls alongside him with the same woman, same Miss Trunchbull hair, same terrified expression, except this time she appears to be screaming at my dad through the window, so my dad pulls over into a lay-by and calls the police. Apparently they have received 3 other calls about the same woman, flashed car in the same area in the last few minutes. It is unfortunately anticlimactic, as he never heard anything more about it, but he didn't see her again, and although he kept an eye on the news, didn't see anything about it. Hopefully it's just a giant coincidence. Who knows? A good buddy of mine is a long-haul trucker for my company. A few months ago, he woke up in a parking lot surrounded by police. Some dude had gotten shot and dumped 15 feet from his truck. Around 2006-ish, I was driving flatbed, picked up a load of construction material, drywall, roofing, don't remember, but it was prepackaged in boxes and I remember having to use strap protectors on the load in rural Tennessee. Memory is foggy now, but I want to say it was between Memphis and Nashville, but closer to the intersection of the MS-AL Tennessee state lines. Tarp required, so I strapped everything down, tarped the load, and left the shipper. About 5 miles down the road, in the middle of nowhere woods on a 2-lane road, I noticed my tarp flapping in the wind, found a wide shoulder and pulled over to fix it. I realized that I just flat did a *giddy job tarping this load and decide to redo it on the side of the road. Undo all the bungee straps, drag the tarps off, roll them back up, climb up on the load, and start unrolling the tarps again, and I see a guy walking down the same side of the road I'm on, coming towards my truck. I don't think anything about it other than to keep an eye on him because I'm in the middle of nowhere and continue what I'm doing. About the time I have tarps set in place and am climbing down to start hooking the bungee straps back on, this dude is getting close enough that I'm now paying more attention to him than I am to tarping my load. I grab my winch bar and set it on the trailer where I'm working just in case. 8-pound solid metal bar about 4 feet long, tapered to a blunt point on one and hollow on the other, used for tightening straps and chains, etc. The guy gets to me and the first thing I notice is his hair. It's like a mullet, but it's patchy as F*******. Like he tried to cut his own hair and had a seizure in the process and said F*******, it good enough to party. The next thing I noticed were his eyes, which I can only describe as off. Like they were clear. I didn't think he was drunk or high or anything. But it also gave me the distinct impression that the elevator didn't go all the way up. Clothes were dirty and not well maintained, with dirty white tennis shoes. Because I remember he didn't have laces on one shoe, and the tongue was noticeably out of place. He stops by me, waits until I acknowledge him, and just says, "I've got a long walk." I'm like, "Yeah, man, you do? We're in the middle of nowhere." Making it clear there's no ride to be had here. He nods, starts walking by me, continuing on his way, stops at about the driver door on my truck and turns around, comes back to me and repeats himself. "I've got a long walk." At this point, I explain that I can't give him a ride, insurance and all that. Apologize for not being able to help him out, and he seems to accept this, turns around, and leaves. I wait for him to get a little ways away from my truck and start working on finishing the tarp job. I still keep an eye on him, and he's moving away from me. As I'm putting on the last of the bungee straps, I look over to check where he's at, and he's turned around heading back towards me, now about 100 yards in front of my truck and coming back my way. It looks like he's talking on a cell phone, has his hand up to his face and I can barely make out his mouth moving, his other hand waving like he's having a conversation with someone. I finish with the straps, grab my winch bar, and am climbing into my truck as he's about 10 yards away now. Soon as I'm in the cab, I lock the doors and set the winch bar on the passenger seat just in case. I look at the guy and realize he's not talking on a phone, he's talking to his ***** hand. And now I'm nervous because he doesn't look like he's having a nice, pleasant chat. It looks more like an angry conversation. Crank the truck up, put it in gear, and just pull out. Didn't look for traffic or anything. As I pass him, he's just looking at me, still holding his hand to his face with this dead, *** look on his face, just staring at me. gave me the creeps. About the time I hit 5th or 6th gear, I look in the mirror and there's no one there. Not a truck driver, but I've spent the past 4 years driving every day night for work. I was in a fairly rural part of Mississippi, somewhere between Clarksdale and Greenwood. Important note, it's all 2-lane highway, the 250-mile drive home. The weather had turned pretty sour as I was leaving Clarksdale. I called my wife, told her there was high wind advisories and very possible tornado threats throughout the Delta, and I'd call her as soon as I made it to a safe area again. I had already been working for 14 hours when I got in the truck, so I had ate dinner and grabbed some coffee to stay awake and alert. Now, if you've never driven through flat farmland at night for 100 miles, it's very fatiguing and spooky without inclement weather. I had driven maybe 30 miles out into the farmland when hail started bouncing off my truck. Being a MS native I knew in July, hail meant tornado. I pull off to the side. I'm in the middle of nowhere, no lights to be seen, no cars behind or in front of me, and start looking for the storm tornado I believe is approaching. I rolled the passenger window down and shined a bright flashlight off into the night. Nothing there. Turned to the driver's side, and this guy has his face pushed against the glass, grinning from ear to ear. I screamed, and he was gone. I slammed the truck in drive and took off. We have all the time running cameras on our trucks. I got to the first safe place to stop and called my wife. I didn't want to scare her, so I didn't mention the guy or the hailstorm. I did, however, pull the SD card and check the cameras. I promise you, this guy never popped up on my front or rear cameras. I've always played it off as my imagination. I will say I don't drive through the Delta in the dark anymore if I don't absolutely have to. Driving through a national park in the middle of the night, going through a slow stretch at about 30 kilometers per h. Every so often, I think I see something out the window and beside me. Just a glimpse of movement. When I yook, though, I don't catch it. Finally, on about the 3rd time, I whip my head around, and this time I recognize it's a huge black wolf following alongside my truck just off the highway. I only saw it for a few seconds before I had to focus back on the road, but it was absolutely lovely yet unsettling. Years ago, I read an answer on a thread with this question, about a guy who was riding with his truck driver father as a child. They were in the middle of nowhere, and they were coming up on a person laying in the road with no one else around. No cars, etc. His dad blew the horn. They didn't move. He blew it again as he got closer. They didn't move. He told his son to put his head down and cover his eyes, and he ran the person over. When they looked back, a bunch of people who were previously hiding were running out of the woods, and the gist was that his dad knew it was a setup for a robbery or worse and wasn't chancing it with his child in the car. No clue if it was true or not, but I think about that story all the time. Not a trucker, but I had a college teammate from Miami tell a story that he swears on to this day. He and his girlfriend were making the drive to Naples late night, on a 2-lane road through the Everglades, and had been in a line of cars behind an 18-wheeler for multiple miles. She fell asleep, and he was surfing for something to listen to on the radio. Only one station came in clearly enough to be tolerable, so he gave it a listen. The DJ came on and said something along the lines of, "The stars are extra bright in the Everglades tonight. If you're driving through there, pull off and take a look." He said he normally wouldn't even think of it, but for some reason felt compelled to that night. He woke up his girlfriend. She was annoyed and didn't want to, but he convinced her it would be worth it. They stopped and just took in the stars for 5-10 minutes. He said it was the most amazing sky he's ever seen. They get back on the road and drive another few minutes and come across a massive accident. The truck they were following had jackknifed and took out a handful of vehicles that were following. He said there multiple fatalities, but I've never been able to find a new story about it to confirm. Probably would have been in 2005-ish. They most likely would have been involved if not for that random DJ on the only radio station to come in that night. Trucker here. I think the best creepy thing that ever happened to me was I was heading from Tucson, Arizona up into Salt Lake City, Utah. Well, this was a few years ago, and the main highway had been taken out in a flash flood, was under construction, so I had to take a weird detour through the mountains in lower Utah. Well, it was getting late and I was getting tired, so I pulled off onto the shoulder and went to sleep in my bunk. Now this was in the middle of nowhere. Closest town was like 40 miles away, so it is completely pitch black outside once I turn the lights off. Anyway, around 4 a.m. I wake up because I'm hearing something messing with my truck, like playing with the air and power cables between my cab and the trailer, which is literally 6 inches from where my head is at, but on the outside of the cab. Then I feel something climb onto the landing that's on the back of my truck, and it shakes my whole truck. So I'm guessing something around 200 to 300 pounds was climbing around back there. I'm thinking like a mountain lion or a bear. At this point, I'm wide the F awake, and I want to get this thing away from me, so I slam my hand into my cab wall, trying to scare whatever is out there. Slam! Hard enough to really make it loud. I then hear someone, a male, scream bloody murder, and I hear them fall off the back of my truck. I then hear about 15 other people all around my truck yelling. I climb up front, turn on my lights, and illuminate a squad of Army reserves doing their midnight ruck march and capture drills. Turns out these guys were supposed to go find an abandoned truck and secure it for their midnight drills. That truck was 3 miles back down the road. They were not expecting me to be sleeping there, and thought I was part of the drill. I'm ex-military, so after explaining I was not part of their test, and legit was just there out of coincidence, we laughed it off. They had to radio to their CO and tell him I was there and not have the other squads bother me. Edit. Wow, thank you for the awards and the likes. Never had this many before. I posted this somewhere else recently, but it fits better here. I used to deliver hotshot freight across the Great Plains, Minnesota area. One night around 2 a.m., I was hauling across North Dakota trying to reach Montana by morning. I was delivering a particularly valuable tractor part that a farm desperately needed for the following day. I began to notice some highway hypnosis sneaking up on me, but it didn't really bother me because I'd been through it hundreds of times before. Anyone who has driven across North Dakota knows that it is incredibly flat, like really flat. There also tends to be very straight and long roads. It's somewhat easy to see things on the road that are far away, even at night. I noticed something long on the road, spanning my entire lane, approximately half a mile in front of me. I slowed down a little and prepared to move into the opposite lane, thinking it was some retread off a blown tire. As I got closer, I noticed it was 2 people laying head to toe across the entire lane. I swerved into the other lane, successfully avoiding them, and came to an almost complete stop, but they didn't move, not an inch. I was just about to back up and check on them when I remembered a story that an old graybeard colleague of mine told me. He told me that in certain remote areas, people will lie down in the middle of the road and wait for a car or truck to stop and see what's going on. At that point, the road layers, along with whoever else is hiding in the nearby bushes, will beat the shit out of the driver and steal his vehicle, leaving him in the middle of nowhere. I decided not to back up, and when the 2 people in the road saw me put my truck back in gear and drive away, they both got up and walked toward the shoulder. I called the police and explained what happened, but we were so far away from civilization that I doubt anything came of it. Thanks to that old graybeard, I got to keep my truck, my job, and my teeth. What instantly ruins a burger for you? Nothing kills a burger faster than a bad tomato. Poor construction. When it flies out the other end, stick everything together with a blob of sauce. I do enjoy sauces on a burger, but to a point. If I end up having to hold a soggy mess, I'm not going to enjoy the burger nearly as much. Also, tall burgers. The two also go together to make an awful burger experience. It's called the chode rule. Burger needs to be wider than it is tall. Watery old lettuce. One time I got a burger with terrible lettuce. It tasted like it came straight out of a lake. From then, I avoid that place saying they have lake lettuce lol. Limp, watery, garbage lettuce ruins so many things. If you can't get quality lettuce, please leave it off. Restaurants sneak it on without putting it on the menu, and you can't just take it off because the wateriness has already soaked into everything else. I once ordered a breakfast burger that was advertised as having, among other toppings, egg. I imagine a nice fried egg, or at least a scrambled egg patty of sorts. No, the monstrosity that came out had a quartered, hard-boiled egg on it. Just terrible. What self-respecting chef would serve that? When the patty slips out the other side. This wouldn't be a problem if the damn brew pubs with their metal stools and 120 decibels sound levels would make a proper patty and not something the size and shape of a tennis ball, raw in the middle and burnt on the outside. People that want to talk while I'm eating a burger. Being too big to fit in your mouth? Pointless. Might as well just throw it all on a plate and call it deconstructed burger. If I can't bite it without the entire thing losing structural integrity related, giant patties suck. Multiple thin patties are the way to go if you want a meaty burger. Wet untoasted bun. Excessive height. Our artisan burger is topped with bacon, pulled pork, a fried egg, quick pickled red onion, rosemary hash brown patty, beer-battered onion rings, house-made sriracha aioli, house-made ketchup, 4-alarm chili, a large Papa John's pizza, and topped off with lettuce and tomato. Edit. I find it really funny that the two most divisive toppings seem to be pizza and tomato. When they cost $1.20 plus. When the tomato has that hard area in the middle, the core, I guess. Gross. A bad tomato. Tomatoes can be great when they're fresh and crisp, but when they're all soggy, they ruin anything they touch. As a gardener who grows tomatoes, 99% of tomatoes that show up on sandwiches and burgers are an affront to tomato-ness in general. Just know, I always order my sandwiches and burgers with no tomato. If it comes with one on it, I always take it off. Sometimes, if it looks halfway decent, I'll eat the tomato separately, but it's almost never worth it. I wait until August when my home tomatoes are ripe and just sit there in the garden eating them, juice dripping down my face. So delicious. I recently had a burger by Gordon Ramsay, and the night before a $30 burger at a fancy restaurant. Ramsay's reminded me almost of McDonald's. 2 small patties that were so easy to eat but delicious. The big burger was so hard to eat. And I remember thinking, I know this is quality. It's $1.30, but goddamn it's falling apart. Gordon's burger made me realize the difference between fancy and quality food. A burger should be easy to eat every bite and not fall apart. It should stay together. Bits of bone. I regularly bite down on these at Camino. I kept giving them the benefit of the doubt and tried again multiple times, but I haven't been back in a while because of it. What is a popular belief that is scientifically proven wrong? Most dietary information that is widely accepted by the public was from studies that have been proven wrong since the 70s. Lightning never strikes in one place twice. Cracking knuckles = arthritis. That if you shave, it'll grow back longer and thicker. That bubble gum gets stuck in your stomach for 99999999999990000 years. Goldfish have a 3-second memory. They don't, and supposedly you can even train them to do tricks. Hiding under a highway overpass is actually not a good way to survive a tornado. It has been scientifically proven that the wind gets concentrated and the speeds increase underneath the overpass. If you aren't shielded by a bridge girder or something similar, you'll just get swept away and mulched. Your best bet for survival if you cannot escape the tornado is to find the nearest deep ditch or hole. A frog thrown in a pot of boiling water will jump out immediately. If a frog is put in a pot of cool water and that water is slowly warmed, the frog won't notice and boil to death. This is indeed false. That rice will make the birds who eat it explode. Birds eat rice all the time. It's actually good for them, especially brown rice. I believe this myth was made up so people would stop throwing rice at weddings, but harming the birds wasn't an actual risk. It was getting rice grains stuck in your ear that was. Anything along the lines of, the average person eats 8 spiders in their sleep during the course of their life. Yada yada yada. That blood is blue until it comes into contact with air. We only use 10% of our brain. Physics says bees shouldn't be able to fly. It was said as a joke, much like Schrodinger's cat, but people took it as fact. Edit. So I don't have to keep posting these links, Schrodinger's cat bees. I thought that was specific to bumblebees. I heard that their wings aren't big enough according to the laws of aerodynamics or something. Then when they took into account the speed of the wings, it made sense. But the original idea I heard about was that the bumbles fly because nobody told them that they couldn't. I kind of like that, even if it's not true. The power of positive thinking. That you can alkalize your body to prevent or cure disease. The belief that sugar causes hyperactivity in children. This belief has been around for decades, but numerous scientific studies have shown that there is no evidence to support it. Fat makes you fat. Sure, it can contribute, but weight problems are mostly due to sugar intake, lifestyle, genetic factors, and overconsumption. Fish don't feel pain, and simultaneously, fish do feel pain, are both arguments which ignore centuries of research. They lack a neocortex which deems them unable to process pain. However, they have several nociceptors located around the mouth which allows them to feel it. What does this mean? Well, nobody actually knows yet, and it is largely open to interpretation. It's unfathomably hard for us to understand, as we can both feel and process pain. Some scientists describe acting on instinct as symptoms of pain when these nociceptors become compromised. Some scientists describe it as just that, though, acting on instinct based on what parts of their body are compromised and hence weaker or vulnerable. For example, you hook and release a bass. That bass now moves slower, eats a little less, and socializes less. Are these actions the result of the fish acknowledging the compromised nociceptors and acting accordingly while giving itself a chance to heal? Or is the fish genuinely hurting and sad? Research points to both being correct, but neither have enough evidence to prove anything yet. All we know with certainty is that we don't have a definite answer supporting either argument, so anyone that leans hard one way or another doesn't know what they are talking about.
What is the biggest unsolved mystery in human history? In 1893, British archaeologist Sir Arthur Evans purchased some ancient stones with mysterious inscriptions on them at a flea market in Athens. On a later trip to the excavations at Knossos on the island of Crete, he recognized one of the symbols from his stones and began a study of the engraved tablets being uncovered at various sites on the island. He discovered 2 different systems, which he called Linear A and Linear B. While Linear B was deciphered in the early 1950s, Linear A, above, has still not been deciphered. There is an entire culture of information that predates much of our history, a window into ancient humanity that is simply locked away from us because we don't know how to read it. An active one in the archaeology world is the exact time frame of when humans made it to the Americas. The date keeps getting pushed back with more controversial discoveries that then just turn to evidence as they pile up. It's a fascinating story to see unfold. Yeah, I like this one too. I think many of the traces of early settlement are likely submerged. Sea levels were much lower during the Ice Age and the majority of human settlements are along the coasts, so a huge piece of our history is probably lying on the seafloor completely undisturbed and possibly well preserved. All those ruins in like Peru and Chile, Bolivia. Blows my mind how they are using LiDAR to find stuff in the Amazon and elsewhere. And it is so old. It makes you wonder if other stuff has been found during urban development and they said, "Nah, I don't see nothing," and took it to a landfill. It is very fascinating what they are finding. I think we will never really learn. The first settlers' traces could have been completely erased by nature and we could never learn anything about who they were, what language they spoke, etc. We can just keep finding earlier and earlier traces, but it just moves the timeline further back, but it will never really reveal the ultimate truth. It's kinda like solving a puzzle with missing pieces, you can only get to a certain point without really solving it. In Australia, in 2011, someone broke into a TV station and spent 4 hours flushing $100,000 down the toilet. Late to the party, but I haven't seen anyone mention the Indus Valley Script. There was a huge civilization in northern India and Pakistan around 3300 to 1300 BC. It spanned more area than any other civilization at the time. They invented writing independently, something only done 5 to 6 times in history. But to this day, with all the thousands of inscriptions we have and all the documented contact with other civilizations, we haven't deciphered their writing. There's no known Rosetta Stone, no known descendant scripts, no known documentation of the language other than what is written in the Indus Valley Script. But the biggest mystery isn't how to read the script or what it says, but the question of whether we'll ever be able to know. Is it even possible to decipher a language we know absolutely nothing about? Edit, to all the people talking about AI, yes. I get it. AI is cool, but this is a far larger task than the pattern recognizing and replicating AI we have today can tackle on its own. Some AI has been used to find patterns in which characters go together most often, but this is a long shot away from being able to read the script. AI will have to be far more advanced than it is today to be able to crack this code. Edit 2, we should revive our Indus Valley as a place to discuss this for anyone really interested. So the monarch butterfly migrates to Mexico and back every year. During the year there are a full 4 generations of butterflies that live and die during the journey. Upon returning back from Mexico, the butterfly manages to find the same trees its relative started out at despite never having been there. What's even more amazing is that every 4th generation of monarchs live considerably longer so they can make the migration. We like to think we understand the universe and that physics is a well-grounded discipline, and in some ways it is. However, we have no idea what dark matter or dark energy is, and yet we think it makes up 27% and 68% of the universe respectively. Some recent observations by JWST about early universe formation run counter to predictions made if dark matter is really a thing. So there's something up in the Standard Model. My confidence is high we'll crack it eventually, but dark matter always seemed like hand-wavium to me. Why is there something rather than nothing, is still pretty much at IMHO. Yeah, what F with my mind is either something came from nothing or there was always something. If I think too long about it, it breaks my brain. Also, nothing is a mystery on its own. We often think a white or black blank space. But space is something also, right? Then how it would be if not even space existed? The final words of the Emperor Titus were, "I have but one regret." We don't know and never will what that regret was. Edit, on reflection it's even better, I have made but one mistake. Supreme confidence. Einstein's last words were in German, but the nurse did not speak German, so we will never know what he said. That most of human history is undocumented and we will never know our entire history as a species. We didn't start recording our history until 5000 BCE, we do know we shifted to agrarian societies around 10,000 BCE, but beyond that we have no idea what we were like as a species. We will never know the undocumented parts of our history that spans tens of thousands of years. We are often baffled by the technological progress of our ancient ancestors. Like those in S.E. Asia who must have been masters of the sea to have colonized the variety of islands there and sailed vast stretches of ocean to land on Australia and New Zealand. What is ironic is we currently have an immense amount of information about our world today and the limited documented history of our early days as a species, but that is only a small fraction of our entire history. Blows my mind that Cleopatra, arguably one of the most famous pharaohs in history, lived and ruled around 2,000 years after the pyramids were built. A lot of people tend to homogenize ancient Egypt as one condensed period in history, but the pyramids were ancient even to Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. Human history is so much longer and so much more complex than I think a lot of us realize just from our surface thoughts. And the fact that the pyramids are still standing, and still structurally sound, is a testament to how well built they are. Which is also pretty freaking amazing. Neither medicine nor science has an answer for what consciousness is, or where it originates. How the universe is even possible. Why the F do we even exist? What job position is 100% overvalued and overpaid? President of FIFA. My IT director. He's never around, automates his email, and he has his own company. Document processors get paid a lot for very little work. My mum, from whom I am estranged, works as the vice president of reward at an international company. She basically arranges contracts so millionaires can get more money and gets paid £189,000 a year for it. Even she thinks it's ridiculous. My uncle was a commercial airline pilot. He described his job as vastly overpaid in normal circumstances and vastly underpaid in emergency situations. One night I babysat 3 kids for about 2 hours or so. The kids went to bed when I got there, and the parents had left dinner out for me, so all I did was eat their food and watch their TV and pet their dogs. When they got home, the mom paid me $100. I told her that was way too much. She slurred, "Don't worry about it, I'm drunk." And then I noticed her fly was down. So that was the most overpaid job ever, lol. Hospital CEOs. And actually almost all hospital upper management. There are so many layers of management that many of them barely step foot into a healthcare facility ever, let alone ever speak to a patient, yet all of them make 6, 7, 8-figure salaries plus mega bonuses. My hospital network CEO makes $11 million salary not including bonuses, which bothers me, but bothers me even more are all the board members and shit directly under him making nearly as much. It's hundreds of millions of wasted money paid to the people trying to screw staff out of good pay and screwing patients into paying big bills. My last job in college, before starting my career. I was an overnight shelter staff for transitional housing. Since these clients were basically back up on their feet by the time they arrived, they were pretty self-sufficient. I was paid about 25% higher than other night shift jobs I could get at the time, and on most nights all I had to do was make 1 pot of coffee. The rest of the time I could watch TV, play video games, do personal chores, etc. The one job that I know was better was their overnight sleeper, since we had to have 2 staff at all times. As implied, this dude made a well above minimum wage rate to just sleep there on the weekends. Ferrari strategist. When I watch professional sports, and someone is doing bad, I understand that despite the fact that they're doing bad, I probably couldn't do better. Yeah, that NBA coach is having a horrible night, but at the end of the day he's still an NBA coach and I'm some guy on the couch watching the game. Ferrari strategist is the only job in that category that I genuinely think I could do at a higher level than the people currently there. If someone else is regional VP, they are either drowning in responsibilities working 70 hours a week, or they have absolutely nothing to do other than collecting a check. I would expand this, personally. Call it the Michael Scott theorem. In any company of sufficient size, there is at least one layer of management that is completely useless, but kept around as a dumping ground for people who earned a promotion but really should have stuck to non-management work, nepotism hires. And people who definitely shouldn't have been hired but are kept around so the person who recommended approved hiring them doesn't get embarrassed. My lifelong best friend just got a regional VP job a month ago. And he's been trying to figure out WTF he's supposed to be doing because thus far his duties encompass replying to directing emails between facilities in his region. It's literally a job he could do with 1.5 hours of real, actual work per day, and the company is thrilled with his work thus far. I told him that I personally think he lucked into the perfect job. About 2/3 of the upper-level admins at the university I work for. I am the payroll person at a state university, and I completely agree with this. The people in upper management aren't even in union-protected jobs who, in theory, should be the first ones gone when we need to settle the budget problems we have. Instead, they were the only ones who got raises during COVID. The one I had at my last office job. I was originally hired to be the manager of a new project, but the project was never launched and I had a long-term contract. After 5 months of being paid by only clocking in and out without doing any actual work, someone saw me in the pool for available associates and invited me to join their project as a frontline agent. Apparently at some moment the database just marked me as an available employee, without mentioning the rank I had been hired for. I stayed in the company for 6 years, getting paid the salary of a manager, but with the responsibilities of a regular agent. I rejected every offer for growth I had, as I was only working there to pay for a debt. In the end, I made my money with very little stress, and left the company in great terms. Edit. Thanks for all the attention, I really didn't expect it to get so much traction. Here's an answer to a couple common comment I've seen. First, if it was so good, why did I leave? Simple, this job had nothing to do with my own career path. A few years back my life basically crumbled to pieces, I got into some really bad debt and at some point I just had to get a job, even if it was an office job I didn't want. Worked for 2 years in another company before I was recommended for the position in the one mentioned in my post. The day my debt was paid off was the day I presented my 2-week notice and left in great terms. I was lucky to have a nice team around me. Second, no, I won't mention the company or project. It was as an analyst in a streaming app. What I actually did as a frontline agent was a hybrid of customer service and developer support, all text-based. Third, it was indeed a very fortunate set of coincidences and I took advantage as much as I could, but I left due to my own pursuit. I'm doing good with my own independent endeavor, and no salary will be more valuable than my own sense of accomplishment of making a living out of what I love doing. Cheers, Reddit. In-house legal for a corporation. I basically browsed the internet most of the day in my office, maybe reviewed 1 or 2 standardized contracts and occasionally sat in during a firing. I made $80,000 a year plus benefits. Edit. To clarify, I am a paralegal, not an attorney, and the work was limited to contracts and entity formation. Hospital CEO or president of FIFA. Glad I got this vital information and am going to be raking it in easy from here on out.
What was once highly respected that is now a complete joke? The History Channel, the Learning Channel, MTV. Food Network 2. It used to be educational and fun, now it's just non-stop competition. TV. To be honest, I don't know the last time I watched TV that wasn't my parents already watching something and me watching with them to spend time with them. It's just all shit on every channel. Bank managers. They used to have serious power in local communities. Now they have to be glorified customer service reps a lot of the time. McAfee antivirus. The internet in general is obscenely safe with just Windows Defender. I don't think I or anyone I know has gotten a virus in nearly 10 years. I parked my truck in a sketchy area of downtown once, and this homeless guy came up to me and said for $20 he'll watch my truck and make sure nothing happens to it. I gave him the $20 because I think he was implying for $20 he wouldn't break into it. That's McAfee antivirus today. Blizzard, the video game company. There is no Blizzard anymore. Only Activision wearing Blizzard's corpse as a skin suit. I would say more like EA, you know, back in the day when they would actually sell us full games. The food pyramid. Staying at a job out of loyalty. More like companies being loyal to employees, providing a good wage, raises, benefits, pensions, etc. Why should employees stay out of loyalty when companies aren't loyal or acting in their best interests? It's a job. The entire idea of loyalty to a job is a joke. I worked in a shop as an auto tech. When I was hired, I was probably the least experienced at the time. One of my fellow techs was probably a rung above me with responsibilities. After talking with him a little, we figured out I came on at $2 higher than he gets paid per hour, and he's been asking for a raise for 6 months. Needless to say, he was at a better job by the end of the week. Always talk wage with your coworkers. Craftsman tools. The Guinness Book of World Records. Once a well-established and professional collection of every impressive human feat. Now a quick ego boost for rich kids that have barely enough talent to balance an egg on their forehead for 15 seconds on a July afternoon at exactly 11:55 a.m. while wearing a Hello Kitty onesie. The Book of Records used to be feats of amazing skill and talent. Now it is records like who can put the most clothespins on their face. All you have to do to beat them is have a bigger face. Bill Bailey. People are going to reflexively deny its initial popularity, but Facebook. It even used its exclusivity as its primary marketing tool during its initial launch only for colleges. There was a period of time when Facebook was the best way for college students to interact with other college students online. Which sounds insane now, but was actually true in its early years. Was in college from 2007 to 2011. Instead of asking girls for their numbers, I definitely asked if I could add them on Facebook. I remember the mass exodus from MySpace to Facebook, and me not wanting to do it because I liked my little HTML-coded background flames over my text and my overly edgy dark themes with music playing. From bands so unknown that even I've forgotten them now. But then we all got FB, and it became so big I kept trying to get my dad on it and he refused because of safety reasons and privacy. I thought he was weird back then, and my sisters even made him a profile that he had them take down. Then about 8 years ago he made an account. Now his entire life is consumed by endlessly scrolling through FB, reposting old memes and signing up for every online offer there is. It's like he did a 180 on his security stance about the time I actually started to understand it. Working in the educational system. Being a teacher still sounds worthy of respect, but working as one is a joke. Kids are free to do whatever they want. You're barely allowed to punish bad behavior in any way. School politics stop from changing anything. Parents always blame you, etc. Hobbies. I am a hobbyist musician, and will never try to make money off of my music. I simply enjoy creating it with zero expectations. Hustle culture ruined a lot of that because now every time I share my music with people, it turns into a conversation about monetization or how I'm wasting my time on something. It's hard to even find like-minded people who want to collaborate without it turning into some big thing. Time enjoyed is not time wasted. Edit. Wow, this blew up. Thanks for the replies. Keep doing what you love. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there, but don't be pressured to do something you don't want to do. The world is full of people who want what you have. Trust me, don't let them take it if it's taking a chunk of you with it. Most celebrities TBH. Honestly, I feel like in the past 6 years, especially in the past 2 to 3 years since the pandemic, people as a whole of all backgrounds, ethnicities, political views, etc., have had a massive decline in trust and faith in many societal institutions and perceived people of power and prestige, as well as each other as human beings. This is a major part of what's leading to our world seeming so much more fractured and unstable, and I think it's only going to get worse. Landline telephones. The house phone used to be a vital link to the outside world. It's how you talk to friends and family far away, interact with businesses, call for help in an emergency, etc. But once junk calls were allowed to spiral completely out of control, the phone became a nuisance. As someone I saw said a while back, a General Z person would sooner jump on a live grenade than accept an incoming call from an unknown number. And that's in the context of mobile phones, which don't get nearly as much spam. Wired phones are almost completely useless today. Journalists, and no, this isn't some right-wing fake news thing. Consumerism has turned hard-hitting journalism into clickbait bullshit because that's the only way they can turn a profit anymore. There are still real journalists out there, but the new ones are being born. Very sad. Healthcare. I've been in it 20 years, it's changed so much. It's a joke. I'm in USA, so it's just gotten more corporate. Quora before it turned into the new Yahoo! Answers. What were you grossly unprepared for as an adult? Going from having tons of friends to really having no one. This is the worst part to me. Being with friends is what gave meaning to my life throughout my entire childhood and teen years. So now that it's all gone, it feels like my life has lost its meaning and purpose, and I'm kind of lost in limbo. I've reached the stage of being apathetic and not really enjoying being alive anymore, because it feels kinda pointless now. Loss. As time passes and you become an adult, there are 2 guarantees. 1. The adults that shaped you, whom you love and adore, also get older. Older and sicker and will die, hopefully later, but sometimes so much sooner than you would ever imagine. And 2. Peers and folks younger than you will die too, often with little to no rhyme or reason. My parents would say growing up that death is a part of life. But I'm not sure there is any way to prepare for really understanding that fact until you experience it yourself as you grow up. It happened when I was 19 the first time. I've lost 3 close friends now, all suddenly from accidents or their own doing. Too many family members to count, because it's not just the ones you're born with, you also marry into more. You will lose many pets over the years and refrain a bit before getting one because you know you will have to bury it someday. While watching all of this over the years, you start noticing how your body and mind don't work like they used to, so death starts being more on your conscience than it's ever been. Petty things like the self-image you project onto other people don't matter much. You realize life is and always was about the intangibles in life that you can never replicate. It's the memories and relationships you had that made your life better, and not the possessions you owned. I love being older because I've finally become the person I was always going to be and don't need to be anything different. I will die in the coming decades, but I at least know who I am, and it makes me happier than most things in life. I had just turned 21 when my grandpa passed away from cancer. It was the first time I've had to deal with the loss of a family member I was actually close to, and it wrecked me. The man had been by my side my entire life up until this point, but I couldn't be by his as he took his last breaths, and that really eats me up inside. If I had known that would have been his last day on Earth, I would have skipped work. His funeral was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. He was a Navy veteran, so they played taps during his burial and did a 21-gun salute. I bawled the entire time. The only thing harder than maintaining my composure was watching Grandma lose hers. 3 years later and it still doesn't feel right to go see Grandma and Grandpa's not there. It doesn't feel right to have lunch at Freddy's and he's not sitting across from me. It doesn't feel right having to call a repairman to fix something, because he could fix just about anything. His recliner is now in my living room, but it doesn't feel right to sit in it. It's like Archie Bunker's chair. I also can't listen to Desperados Waiting for a Train by Highwaymen. I just can't make it to the end of that song before the waterworks start. You never get over it. You just learn to live with it. What were you grossly unprepared for as an adult? How much I still feel like a kid on the inside. God, I'm 64 and I think that thought almost literally every day. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Life is serious business, but being serious about everything all the time sure ain't how I want to live. I pretty much try to clear the decks as often as I can so I can just have fun. It's gotten worlds easier since I retired in 2020. You know the biggest shocker for me? At some point people stop reminding you what you need to do, where to be, brush your teeth, make doctor's appointments, etc. I don't feel older or grown up, I just feel a bit more lost and I don't know what to do. I definitely feel this. I still get giddy over cool toys at the store, I still prefer dinosaur nuggets to regular ones. Hell, I remember when I was going home from the hospital with my son and kind of panicked like how the fuck am I supposed to do this? I'm not qualified for this shit. I have no idea what I'm doing. Now I'm here having arguments with my 5-year-old about dumb shit daily and have to remind myself that I've got 22 years on him and he has none of life experience I do. Despite the fact we both just got excited over ice cream and Toy Story. I'm pushing 40 and still waiting for the adult side to kick in. Otherwise I'm walking around hoping no one else catches on that I have to fucking clue what I'm doing. What were you grossly unprepared for as an adult? How much harder it is to make friends. Work, hobbies and church are the other ways to make friends. If you don't have any hobbies that get you out and aren't religious, then work is really the only place you meet other people during the week. And if you work from home you're just fucked. Basically this. It really starts to suck when you become deeply depressed due to your lack of friends, which makes it much harder to want to find hobbies and also makes you less enjoyable to be around. Which makes it even harder to make friends and in turn worsening your depression. It's a self-perpetuating cycle that I think a lot of adults find themselves stuck in at one time or another. I found some friends off the internet, and off some events I went to. Just find a forum or a Discord group of people who are interested in the same thing as you and you just may make some friends. What were you grossly unprepared for as an adult? Choosing what to eat every day of my life. For many years my thought process went like this. Day 1, pizza. Day 2, pizza was good, let's do pizza again. Day 3, I can't think of a single argument against pizza. Day 4000, why does my body feel like it's undergoing total organ failure? I literally gave myself motherfucking scurvy with a primarily Dorito-based diet. I was in the throes of really heavy depression at the time, and didn't so much eat meals as graze listlessly on whatever easy calories were within range. Eventually, I began feeling really sick and exhausted, with random body pains and a notable decrease in quality of hair and nails. Being depressed, I figured, dying tragically is no worse than living tragically, and continued perpetuating my ugly existence by means of corn snacks. And then one rare night I went out to a party, got hammered on screwdrivers, and woke up feeling far better than getting hammered on screwdrivers usually elicits. One realization later, well, didn't really do anything differently, but occasionally supplemented my depression with a multivitamin. One of the most depressing parts of adulthood. I can eat ice cream for dinner. I will both physically and emotionally regret eating ice cream for dinner. My 11-year-old self did not understand this reality. The rule at my house is that if I have to ask "what do you want" 3 times, I'm making rice and beans or chicken and rice. My wife isn't a huge fan of rice, but I am, so I think a penalty helps her get over her decision paralysis. So just figure out a cheap, easy meal, and make that if you don't know what to eat. At a certain point, you'll get tired of it and want to make something else just to shake it up.
What's a modern-day poison people willingly ingest? I'm gonna say vaping. I knocked it on the head as my New Year's resolution. First time I've been completely nicotine-free and still going strong, but I genuinely felt like I was about to cough my lungs up about 90% of the time vaping. If I have to be honest, I don't miss either, but I started vaping to stop smoking. I hate seeing young kids and teens do it, ones who wouldn't have even considered smoking. Edit. I'm talking disposable vapes. Should have clarified that beforehand. Work 5, 6 days a week and having no life. Those shorts videos that now are almost in every platform, if you have problems with focus and getting *T done, then you know that if you keep watching them, you might end up in the next day without even realizing you haven't done anything yet. Social media. 24-hour news cycle. Soda. I used to drink it a lot. I had terrible health issues and sleep issues. I cut it all out. Been maybe 2 years without it. I feel better, I'm sick less, I sleep better, and I function better overall. Just replace it with water. If you live in the Western world, you most likely have clean drinking water being pumped to your house. I don't believe on banning something because I don't like it, but I do think that shit is poison. It's also super addictive. The first couple weeks I cut soda out was rough. Then we give this to kids and it screws up their systems. Edit. I've never had a comment get this kind of attention. Quickly going through the replies, I want to say congratulations to everyone who kicked the habit or other ones like smoking. Second, there are absolutely people not affected by it. If you drink it in moderation, it's not too bad. I admit I was really bad with it. My main concern with it is that there's nothing good about Coke or Pepsi. It's just sugar, caffeine, and addictive ingredients. That's why I use the term poison. It only has negative effects with it. Now that being said, if you enjoy soda, then go for it. It's your life. If you can do it in moderation, even better. The thing is, we market it so hard to kids and many parents just let them overindulge. Again, not all, but a good chunk. My parents let me have way too much. Also, all my stuff is anecdotal. I'm not a doctor, but every doctor I had when I was younger would tell me I need to stop drinking it. I would tell them I would, and then not because I was young. It caught up to me, though. If you're young now and pounding back several cans a day, then it's probably going to hurt you too. I'm not a spring chicken anymore, and every one of my friends who was like me was in the same boat with the health issues. If you can keep it in moderation, then great, but watch how much you drink. Outrage. It's straight up poison to your mental health, but we thrive on it, yearn for it. Places like TikTok, Twitter, and our public freakout pass it out like dealers for little more than some attention, poisoning people to feel popular. Worse, it's useful to those in control, so there's no escaping it. Political parties and activists need you outraged, one-tracked, immune to real empathy, and motivated to solidify their power. So here we are. I no longer watch or read any news. I've had people tell me I'm ignorant because of it. Fair enough. But constantly hearing about politics, who's been murdered, raped, where a bomb or natural disaster has killed thousands of innocent people, how the economy is, etc. on a loop just ruined my mental health and self-esteem. It takes me 45 mins to drive to work, and I used to listen to the news that whole time. By the time I got to work, my day and mood would be ruined by 9 a.m. Of course, horrible things are going on in the world, but I'm one person. It sounds ignorant, but there's not much I can do to change things. Yes, of course, every voice counts, but again, I'm just one person. Now that I'm no longer hearing constant negativity and how the world is F asterisk 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 asterisk, I realize that life is honestly quite all right. Nothing's perfect, but I'm so much happier now. Negativity gets clicks, listens more than positivity does, and news channels capitalize on this and give people the worst, most sensationalized news possible to keep them listening.
What's S3XY for a woman to do but creepy for a guy to do? Throw their underwear at the guitarist. Slowly bending over to pick something up while giving you a wink, although I would find it funny if a man did that in front of me. Walk around the house in just panties. When my wife does, it is S3XY and freeing. When I do it, I get told I'm stretching out her underwear and ruining it. The double F asterisk 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 standard. Walking around in their GF's shirt with no pants. Titty bounce. Show up unannounced and horny. Tell you they're wet. Put things into their genitals. Say, I'm not wearing any underwear. There are certain phrases that women can say that would be received very differently if a man were to say it. As an example, someone I know used to work as a vet tech. They had workers come and go over the years. One was a high school boy. She told me that on his 18th birthday, she jokingly told him he was legal now, and everyone laughed. When she told me that story, she didn't understand how I thought it would go badly with the S3X's reversed. Until we saw her new boss's daughter turn 18, and I told her, imagine how creepy it would be if I went up to your boss's daughter and told her, hey, you're legal now. Wear only a men's shirt. Basically, anything naughty done secretly in public is ultimately more appealing to probably everyone if done by a woman and creepy if done by a man. Female teacher has S3X with underage student. Teacher had S3X with student. Male teacher has S3X with underage student. Pedophile teacher R asterisk ped underage student. Both are wrong and disgusting as F asterisk asterisk asterisk, yet the female teacher gets the more innocent headline. And if a female teacher is having an affair with a student, it's often portrayed as if the student is the lucky one in this exchange. I don't know how anyone thinks this is even remotely okay. Women seem to get a pass on S3 actual coercion. If a man pushes for S3X, he's called a R asterisk pissed, and rightfully so, I'm not disputing that. But if a woman pushes for S3X, she needs to feel attractive. I saw a post not too long ago in Relationship Advice Sub where a guy said his girlfriend was mad at him because he was too tired for S3X, and she had just done her makeup and put on lingerie. The majority of the comments were telling him he needed to apologize to her because she put in all that effort for him, and he made her feel unattractive. Told him to suggest they can try again tomorrow. It was disgusting to read. Imagine if it was switched and everyone was like, your man put in all this effort for you, bought you dinner, and you made him feel inadequate. Tell him you can try again tomorrow. You need to apologize to him for not putting out. Right. It would not happen. Same vibes, but for some reason it is okay for the woman. Wear clothes that reveal the outline of your genitals at the gym. I once was talking to a woman in her mid-30s in a bar. She asked how old I was, and I told her 23, which I was at the time. This is a long time ago. And she goes, oh my God, you're like 12, which in retrospect didn't make any sense whatsoever. But then she followed up with, but you are kind of cute, though. It was annoying to me, as a 23-year-old guy, to be infantilized like that. But if a mid-30s man had told a younger woman she looked 12, and then immediately followed up by trying to hit on her, instant creep. Extended eye contact.
What's 100% a scam, but we accepted it in our society? Political promises. Paying for what the earth gives us for free. America's tipping culture. The fact that businesses have put the burden on consumers to pay their employees livable wages is a joke. That dental isn't part of medical insurance by default. Same with eye care. If I can't see, I can't do anything, and I'm practically blind without my glasses. I'd have died in the era before glasses were invented. As an academic scientist, pick one of these two. We use taxpayer money to fund biomedical research, which we then write up into a research study and pay the journal so that they can publish the said study only for the journals to turn around and put them behind a paywall. We also use taxpayer money to fund years of biomedical research, which occasionally results in a groundbreaking drug treatment, which then gets licensed out, usually, by a pharma company, which then marks up the price and turns around and charges the taxpayer an absurd amount of money to use the said drug. Edit. Additional salt to the wound. Do you guys know Moderna, which made the mRNA COVID vaccine, and the NIH, the federal institute that performed initial preclinical research on the mRNA vaccine and also literally funded the research, are in a patent dispute over the vaccine? A fee to pay your bill? Service charge. My Enbridge gas bill has a service fee, customer fee, convenience fee, paper bill fee, storage fee, delivery charge, other random hidden fees, and then the actual gas. I could shut my gas off, not use any at all, and my bill would still be at least $1.52 per month. It's absolute bullshit. But because Canada is run by monopolies and oligarchs, we have no choice. It's that or freeze to death. But honestly, I'm ready to riot. If I saw a literal mob going down my street with signs protesting this shit, I would 100% without a second thought grab my pitchfork from my shed and join. This shit should have changed decades ago. Seriously, I have to pay a fee to take out money at the ATM at my bank. Like, there is no way to take out money without a service charge. College bookstores. 1. Don't buy any of the listed books for a course 2. Wait until you're a couple days into the class to see which ones are asterisk, really asterisk required, and which ones are just suggested reading. 3. Pirate any required ones you can. 4. Buy the remaining ones on Amazon with 2-day shipping. Profs expect that no one will have their books the first week of the semester anyway. 5. Profit. Well, okay, save a ton by buying only 10% of the books they said you needed. Convenience fees on electronic payments. Biggest insult to everyone's intelligence. Pay this extra fee to give us money electronically without needing to pay an employee. It costs so much more for the computer to do it. The convenience fees are basically the recurring payment agreement that the service provider has to give to the payment provider. They should just roll it into the cost of the service, but for whatever reason it's broken out as a convenience fee. My guess is that payment providers want flexibility to raise their own convenience fee at any time and not have to deal with vendor systems or vendor pricing policies. Keeping the fee separate allows that. I'm paying money so that I can pay money. What the absolute F? Ticketmaster. I was looking for tickets to a pro hockey game. The ticket price was $108, and the Ticketmaster fee was $83. Needless to say, I didn't buy the ticket. I recently went to see a touring Broadway show that came to my city. My options to get tickets were to walk to the box office after work, a 10-minute walk one way because parking around there sucks, or order online through Ticketmaster. 2 tickets at the box office cost me $132. It would have cost $198 with Ticketmaster's fees. Obviously, I walked to the box office. Edit. I shouldn't have to justify myself to internet randos, but since a few people have commented on it, this was in the middle of winter, and I suffer from chronic pain that causes mobility issues and is exacerbated by the cold. The 20-minute round trip in question caused a fair amount of discomfort. So yes, is the walk worth it to save $66? Is a question I was legitimately asking myself, and was something that warranted serious consideration. The price of printer ink. That it's considered normal to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a wedding/ring/bachelor party. Tell me about it. My GF just quoted me $30K for our rehearsal dinner, and I'm like, we are. $30K for a rehearsal dinner? You guys serving smoked unicorn ribeye with a side of Olympian ambrosia? That health insurance doesn't cover your eyes or teeth. Same in Spain, which is extra frustrating for me and my family, because eyes and teeth are literally the only healthcare attention we've ever needed in my life. So we've been just paying taxes and also had to pay for our needs. I have friends who lived for a few years in France, and even glasses are subsidized there. If I was French, I'd have saved thousands of euros over the years. It's ridiculous. Unpaid lunches that extend your workday. One place I used to work would bring lunch for the last 3 days of the month. If they provided lunch, they didn't have to pay overtime for an hour. They were known as hostage lunches. Proof of consistent rent payment does not improve your eligibility for a mortgage. Edit. Just amazed at the number of upvotes on my completely wrong comment. Not as accepted as it was, but the idea that alcohol is safer than other illegal or recently legalized substances. Arbitration clauses in almost every service provider contract, tricking you into giving up your access to the court system. Nobody talks about it, but they should. Luxury skincare. Go to a dermatologist, pay less, get real results. Payday loans. Went through a hard time years ago, ended up having no other options to get money but a payday loan. Was stuck in the cycle of pay off loan and take the same amount for another week to get by. For probably close to a month until work picked back up enough and I could pay it off and have some extra to survive till next payday. Never, ever, 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 ever again. Ever. Middlemen brokers eating up the profit and inflating the prices in pretty much every business. I don't think it's a scam, but the price is like $4.99, when it's clearly $5. But they know most of the people will tend to think subconsciously it's $4. That we allow people to sell buy my course to see how you can make money. It really should be a regulated situation. Mum influencers using their kids as bait to advertise products. Absolutely despicable.
What's a company secret you can share now that you don't work there? I worked at L'Oreal. The cosmetics from L'Oreal and Lancome are practically the same. But Lancome costs like $20 more. Diet Sprite and Sprite Zero were the exact same thing. They didn't change the recipe one bit. They just changed the name and design. I worked for a major hotel chain in housekeeping for over 10 years. The number of suicides and people who die naturally in their rooms is a lot higher than you'd think. I worked at a huge convention hotel with over 1,000 rooms, and it happened quite often. Unless it was a pretty gnarly mess, it would just get cleaned like normal and the next guest had no idea. I worked at Olive Garden in the mid-90s while I was in college. Back then, they had the all-you-can-eat soup, salad and breadsticks lunch special for like $4.25 plus tax. Working lunch shift sucked. You would get probably 2 or 3 tables, and there was a 99% chance that all of your tables were 2 ladies getting this lunch special with water during their lunch break. After about a year, several of our best servers were mysteriously fired. It turns out, they were running a scam where they used the same receipt over and over again when these ladies paid for their meal with cash. Since we could get those 3 items ourselves from the back without ringing them into the system, these servers were just pocketing the cash for the entire meal. So instead of making like $5 to $8 in tips during a lunch shift like the rest of us dumb schmucks, they would make an extra $20 or so by stealing from the company. I worked at a comic book store that offered a service where you paid a small premium to have sent in rare comics to have them graded at CGC. A few months later we had many customers coming in to check the status of their comics. We contacted the owner to see what was going on, and he would always claim that there was some distribution problem. Fast forward a few months, we found out he was taking customers' graded copies and selling them online while trying to return back issue versions of their original comics. If you were on live chat with customer care, I could see what you were typing before pressing send. I watched people work through grotesque, racist, sexist statements, fraudulent lies and mistruths, meticulous grammar fixes, and their whole range of emotions in real time before deleting and typing OK. Had a friend who worked for a bridal dress company. She would tell me all her stories after work. They intentionally will bring back the wrong dress in attempts to get you to try it on, fall in love, and buy a more expensive wedding dress. They'll walk you through the more expensive sections so you look through dresses out of your budget and want to try them on. They often forget to check if the dress you requested is in stock for the time frame you've requested, again so that you'll have to pay more for faster shipping or a nicer dress. It's a very predatory business masked by compliments, thinly veiled body shaming, and incredibly underpaid and understaffed stores. I don't think it's a bad secret at all. But back in college, I delivered pizzas for Papa John's. The store manager must have had an undiagnosed case of OCD or germophobia or something. Because every night, he would assign someone to do the cleaning duties. And every night, he would absolutely lose his temper and berate whoever was doing the cleaning. They were going too fast, they weren't cleaning everything, whatever. After that, he'd always take over the cleaning himself. He was amazingly picky about the cleanliness and food quality. Expiration date is 3 days from now? Fuck that, I'll order more. Throw that shit away, we're not serving it. He would also go out of pocket to buy special cleaning products, because that worthless bullshit that corporate wants us to use doesn't get the job done. He also went out of pocket to hire some kind of specialist to clean out the fountain drink dispenser, ice machine and all that stuff. The machine needs to always be as close to brand new as possible. One standout moment for me was when he reduced a cashier to tears by hollering, "Would you eat off this floor?" No? Then it's not clean enough. He wasn't telling her to eat off the floor. He was just making a point. After we'd closed the store, he'd kick all of us out, lock up behind us and stay until something like 2 a.m. cleaning the place. You always knew when he closed because you could smell the chemical scent still lingering in the air. The end result of this was the store, the food, the equipment and the facilities were always in squeaky clean condition. Customers picked up on what a perfectionist the store manager was and bought from us all the time. Because there's a lot of peace of mind that goes in with knowing your food was cooked by someone willing to throw ingredients away before the expiration date. Stay in the store until God knows when cleaning everything, etc. The true irony was how much the boss hated himself because he didn't think he was doing a good enough job to run a clean restaurant with fresh ingredients. It didn't matter how many compliments he got from customers or how many service industry veterans said they'd never worked in a place as obsessive about freshness and cleanliness as his Papa John's store. He was convinced his store was still a filthy barn. Eventually, he got promoted to some kind of higher-level corporate position that required him to visit other stores and make sure they were all up to spec. The end result of that was a lot of stores in this area all improved seemingly overnight. They are out of business now, but in the early 90s I worked at Radio Shack for a year and a half. When people would return an item because it didn't work, the manager of the store would just box it back up and sell it again as if it were new. When I asked him about it he said, "Hopefully they will return it to a different store." I nearly got fired when I refused to sell a guy a walkie-talkie CB radio that I knew didn't work. The guy was on his way out for a hunting trip and was buying 3 of these for him and his friends. We had 2 and the third was the broken one. In front of the customer, I told the manager that one didn't work and I had tested it. The guy was happy. I told him, we arranged for him to get the last one he needed at a different store and off he went. The manager was livid with me and nearly fired me. I'm sorry, I'm not sending people out into the forest with gear I know doesn't work. Hilariously, a few months later the manager was caught stealing from the store and got fired. Edit, well, I didn't expect this to blow up like this. It's pretty funny. My highest upvoted comment is about my shitty past job. Health insurance dude. When you file a claim, it is often denied because they're counting on you not escalating it. Once you do, your case goes to a medical management group, which ought to be called the "we don't want to pay" group. Keep escalating and involve your doctor. Fight for the insurance you paid for.
What's an unwritten rule about the road that new drivers should know? Try to give other drivers as much information as possible. Always use your turn signals, even in a turn lane. People have no way of knowing if you're actually about to turn or not. Don't cut corners. I've nearly had head-on collisions because people can't just slow down a little and turn into the lane properly. Don't be nice, be predictable. What this means is, don't slam on your brakes to let someone else go. Drive predictably. My mom got into a terrible accident because someone was trying to be nice and waving her on to turn when they should have gone, and someone behind them went around and crashed into my mom, who finally just decided to turn because the guy was being too nice. Assume everyone else is an idiot. Green means legal, not safe. Assume everyone is a moron trying to crash into you. Merging onto a highway interstate should be a very active process. Try to match the speed of traffic and fit into an open slot. Don't slow down to a crawl and wait for a wide berth. The car with the most duct tape has the right of way. And U-Haul trucks. Chances are the guy driving a U-Haul truck is driving a vehicle much bigger than he is used to, hasn't had enough sleep, and is having a long day. Always leave yourself a way out. If it's your turn to go at a four-way stop, then go. None of this wave the other guy through crap. You're messing up the sequence. Always know what's around you. Know what cars are behind you or in the lane next to you. That way, if you feel you have to change lanes quickly, you know whether you can or can't. An old boss of mine used to put it this way. On the road, there's 5 people you need to be aware of at all times. The guy in front of you, the guy behind you, the guy directly to your right, the guy directly to your left, and the guy that comes out of *****ing nowhere. This needs to be higher up. I cannot tell you how many times I've been in the car with a relative that uses their phone all the time while driving, and almost crashes us into something. Like if you can't focus on everything, and your phone, maybe you shouldn't be looking at the phone. The whole "I do this all the time" excuse is tiring. Just because you do it doesn't mean you do it well. For the love of God, turn off your brights when you're behind someone else. Folks already mentioned the height of SUVs and LEDs, but there's also another issue. Lots of folks are replacing their vehicles' old incandescent lamps with LEDs. The trouble is, the reflectors behind the lamp and the lens in front are meant for a completely different light. Additionally, and more importantly, most people don't realize that when you replace a headlight lamp, you have to readjust the angle of the reflector and/or the height of the lamp. So you end up with the wrong lamp, with the wrong lens shining in the wrong direction. And you probably wouldn't even realize. You just know that even the low beams give great visibility with your fancy new headlights, never aware both of them are focused directly at the rear view mirror of the car in front. Always, and I mean always, turn down your music volume when you are attempting to locate an address number or street sign. If I flash my lights towards you and we're in a well-lit environment, this means your high beams are on and I'm blinded by the lights of 100 suns your car is targeting me with. Also, turn your damn high beams off when driving behind other cars. My car's internal light works fine. I do not need extra interior lighting. Okay, so that is not completely correct. If someone flashes their lights towards you, check in the following order. 1. Your lights. Are your headlights off when they should be on? Are your high beams on when they should be off? 2. Hazards on the road, including but not limited to police, fallen objects, police, accident police, animals police, etc. 3. If everything else seems to be okay and people keep flashing their lights at you, something could be wrong with your car. Your hood may be unlatched, door not closed properly, something stuck in door, piece of bodywork loose, flat tire. Find a nearest safe place to stop and give your car a once-over. What's the dumbest myth people today believe? I remember the myth that gum takes 7 years to fully pass through your digestive system. That you eat spiders in your sleep. Spider will not knowingly walk into a predator's mouth. They can sense both the heartbeat, heat, and noise from humans, all things that would alert them not to go into our mouth. Detox drinks. Urine therapy, just why? If you drop a penny off a skyscraper, it will eventually fall fast enough to puncture someone's skull. By that logic, raindrops would hurt like a bitch or straight up kill you, not to mention hail. There are dumber ones out there, but the one I, as an estate lawyer, deal with constantly is the idea that there needs to be a reading of the will, where the family all gather and the lawyer reads it aloud to them for the first time. We don't do that. We just mail everyone their own copy if they want it. It's a really stubbornly persistent one because people continue to see scenes of it in movies and TV shows where it's used for some big dramatic reveal. I've even had irate beneficiaries insist that the administration of the estate can't be official until there's a reading. Way back, like 150 years ago or so, I believe we used to do something like that at times because you couldn't exactly presume literacy on the part of the beneficiaries. But now we feel it's a pretty safe bet that you can either read it or find someone who can. Black belts have to register their fists as weapons. I can't believe I was dumb enough to fall for that. Tear here to open. It is believed in Indian culture that keeping your unibrow means good luck. I kept my unibrow for 20 years thinking it is my good luck, until I got stage 5 of kidney failure, and I did my eyebrows after that because who gives a F about luck anymore? Now my eyebrows look cute AF. That people's hands are eventually going to be useless if they keep cracking their knuckles. At some point, a viral video allegedly proved that the beg buttons at crosswalks are just placebos. Some of them are, but most of them really do add a cycle for pedestrians to get a walk signal. You should use them regardless. That shaving makes your hair grow back thicker. My 37-year-old partner still believes this, and it does my nut in. There are still people who believe that having S3X in certain positions or eating certain foods can influence the S3X of your unborn child, or impact whether you have twins, multiples. That humans only use 10% of their brain. This is false, regardless of how those who proclaim this myth seemingly demonstrate that it is in fact true. Oh, I don't want to make more money, because then I'll lose more money to taxes and take home less. You only get taxed on the money that's made above your current bracket. It's literally impossible to make more money and take home less. Many people still believe hymens are like plastic food seals that cover up the hole and get popped when you have S3X for the first time. And if a girl doesn't BL33D, she's not a virgin. Halloween candy is commonly laced with drugs or razor blades. Had to explain to a grown adult that blood isn't blue inside the body and red once it hits oxygen because blood already carries oxygen. ETA. I didn't expect this to take off, I first commented when the post was brand new and only had 30 comments. I understand that I came off as a snarky **** about it, but the dude and I were cool after 10 minutes of convincing him that what he was taught was a myth. No hurt feelings, buds. That if you touch a baby bird, its mother will abandon it because of the smell. Birds actually have a very crappy sense of smell. Asterisk asterisk ETA. Yes, I realize there are exceptions such as vultures that do have a good sense of smell, but in general, smelling a human on their baby won't make them abandon them, as far as I am aware. That there are magic pills that make you lose weight and gain muscle without ever going to a gym. Or that there are snake oils that will take years off of your face and make you look young. There's a sucker born every minute. Lightning never strikes the same place twice. Yes, it does. That's the entire reason for lightning rods on buildings.
What's the strangest date you've ever been on? It was my second date with this guy, and he said the exact same things that he said on the first date. Word for word. The same stories, the same random thoughts, the same questions. It freaked me out so much that at first I played along and answered in the exact same way. As though we were both following some weird script. Eventually I tried to break the mold and ask him new things, but he would just bring it back around to the same topics as last time. It was like I was in a computer program and there was a glitch. Still freaks me out to think of it. I went out with a girl to a nice Japanese restaurant. I got there first and waited at the bar. She walked in, saw me, and walked out immediately without a word. I went outside and asked her if she was okay and she told me, I can't really be in there right now. We went to an Irish pub instead, and had some very awkward small talk filled with long silences. After about 45 minutes I told her I thought it was pretty clear that this wasn't working and we didn't have to stay, we could just go. I took her back to her car parked at my house and we said goodnight. Right before I opened my front door she asked if I wanted to get a drink at the bar across the street. I said sure, we had a great time, got hammered, went back to my place and had brain-melting S3X. We've been married 10 years now. She has some pretty serious anxiety issues that come and go, and for whatever reason the crowd atmosphere at the Japanese place really set it off and it took her some time to recover. Probably one from about 5 years or so back. I had just moved to London, and met this guy on a dating website. He was generally not my type. Still, I was fresh out of a long-term damaging relationship and trying to meet new people yada, yada. Fast forward to the date, and he takes a call from a girl and he says to her, "Oh, I'm just in the pub with," I can hear her on the other end getting worked up about something and him telling her to calm down. Alarm bells already ringing. He hangs up the phone and says that was my fiancée, but not a real one, just one I'm with for her visa. At this point I'm already thinking, bloody hell. He continued on with his excuse, she also lives with me. Oh yeah, I should probably tell you I'm getting married in 3 weeks. At this exact point, I just said, well, I'm going home, and start pulling on my coat. His reply was even more classic, do you want to help me buy groceries first? Met girl on Match. She showed up 20 minutes late. I had to excuse myself so I could hide out in the bathroom and write down as much of the batshit crazy things this woman was saying before I forgot. Topics included, but were not limited to: daddy issues, her mother loves her brother more, miscarriage, being married before, when we start dating, when we are married, setting me up with her assistant. How she'll F me with blood on my face, things she does when she's high, Brazilian trance music, adopting children, what's my dog's name again, how she doesn't trust animated movies. Why she was 20 minutes late, owning a business, when it's acceptable to use the C word, being a vegetarian, her blind cat, her dying uncle, abusive relationships, the city of Tampa. Free-range urination, and can we order tater tots? We didn't go out again. We had been talking on the phone for about a month already. He tells me his car is booted, outside of his house. He had a long drawn-out story about how he could not get the boot removed. His dad was staying with him and he thought would be able to use his dad's car, but now he can't. So I go to get him to go somewhere to eat. He starts panicking saying, "Oh great, now I'm in the car with you and I'm going to get accused of rape or something." I asked him what the hell he was talking about. He just kept rocking in his seat anxiously, worried that he would be accused of rape. I drove to the nearest area with food and asked him where he wanted to go. He said he had no money and wanted to go home. So I took him home. Then he asked me if he could borrow $20. I don't know why, but I gave it to him. After this, he called me repeatedly and I ignored his calls. He texted me asking why he was not good enough for me to date. I kept ignoring him. Fast forward 3 years. He is on a dating site I am on. He messages me but does not remember who I am. He tells me that a year ago his longtime girlfriend passed away, the one he had lived with for 10 years. So, he was not staying with his dad, and he was freaking out because he lived with his girlfriend when he met me, right outside of his house. I called him out on it and he tried to pretend I had the wrong guy. But he had the same name and worked at the same place, and looked like the same guy. Very bizarre. I went on a date with a guy in my apartment block, only to see his disappointed face when my girlfriend called me on the way home. I realized he'd assumed I was gay and that I'd assumed he was just a friendly guy wanted to hang out. I've posted this before because it's so weird. I went for a meal with this girl I met through a dating app and it was going really well. We started talking about movies and then we decided to go to the cinema to go watch Inception. She said there was a cinema nearby but I didn't know the area at all, so I used the GPS on my phone and she held it and directed me. Once we got there we started walking inside and I realized I didn't have my phone in my pocket. I said I must have left it in the car and started to walk back to get it. She was trying to get me to leave it and saying we would miss the film, but the phone was only about a week old, so I was really paranoid about it. We checked the car for about 10 minutes but we couldn't find it. I asked her to check her jacket and her bag but she said it wasn't there. A couple parked next to us so I asked them to ring my number because I couldn't find it. It started to ring and it was obviously coming from my date's handbag. She took it out and said she must have missed it. I thanked the couple and locked my car, and as I turned back around she was walking the other way. I ran to catch up and asked what was going on but she was very dismissive and was barely talking. That's when I realized it wasn't an accident and just left her to walk home alone. The first time I ever used Tinder was also my worst experience with Tinder. The date itself was fine, a little stiff, but fine. Typical questions like what are you studying, where did you grow up, etc. We ate dinner and I didn't plan on meeting up with him again. The next day I got a text from him saying, "Hey." I text him back, "Hi." He asks me what's up, I say not a whole lot, what's up with you. End up getting a huge paragraph back talking about his creative process for writing a specific type of porno where women crush rats and tarantulas between their breasts. What the F?
Which canceled TV show deserved another season? Probably anything canceled by Netflix. Mindhunter has entered the chat. Rome! Yes, Rome. It was Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones. Better Off Ted. The show was a brilliant satire of corporate business that was far too funny. Amazing cast, incredibly quotable, ended far too soon. Punisher should have had a season 2 with more gang mafia shenanigans. Altered Carbon should have been able to wrap up its story. Rubicon. Didn't have to be a continuation, but I would love to see more like it. Edit. I have been corrected. Punisher had a season 2. My mistake. This may seem a bit childish, but Teen Titans, the original one from 2003. Edit. Oh my god, thanks for the award, guys! It's a bummer because every character got one season where they were the focus of the ongoing plot. Season 1 was Robin, Season 2 was Tara, Season 3 was Cyborg, Season 4 was Raven, and Season 5 was Beast Boy. It was set up perfectly to have a 6th season focused on Starfire, and we never got it. Freaks and geeks, one season was not enough. We all wanted another season, but I think A Year in the Life was absolutely perfect. Everyone got a little arc and we said goodbye. I am not okay with this. It had so much potential, not to mention they left so much unanswered at the end of the season purposely so they could make a second one. Venture Bros. Venture Bros was easily a solid decade ahead of its time. The Boys, Invincible, Harley Quinn, Doom Patrol, Peacemaker. All these shows deal with deconstructing the superhero mythos, and the Venture Brothers was doing this way back in 2004. At least we're getting a movie. Dark Matter, what happened after that cliffhanger? Pushing Daisies. John Constantine. The Arrowverse shows weren't always the best, though I will defend the first couple seasons of both Arrow and Flash. I am glad Matt Ryan was able to keep playing the character here and there across those shows. He was an excellent John Constantine. Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. Edit. So, a lot of people didn't like the second season, which is completely fair. It's hard to live up to the expectations of such a solid first season. The reason I personally would like a third season is that the cliffhanger is so damn tasty. Also, I want more Rowdy 3, 6, Alan Tudyk, and Tyler Labine. I recognize that it deviates completely from the source material, and I understand why a lot of people are upset by that. There's a lot of examples where I hated the adaptation, looking at you World War Z, but I personally believe this is a perfect example of how you take inspiration and run with it. A dark, gritty version where Dirk was the fat slob the books described him as might also be fantastic, and I'd probably watch the shit out of it. However, I think this adaptation captures the whimsical nonsense of Douglas Adams' writing perfectly, and I'm okay with it. It's just a shame that the show was attached to such a scumbag. Otherwise, we might have seen that third season that gave us all the answers they teased. I'm still salty about Santa Clarita Diet being canceled. I need to see what's next for Joel. The Dark Crystal Sayers. Dollhouse. The cancellation caused season finale to be too rushed. Would have been better if they had been given more time to develop the ending. Plus, the world could always use more Eliza Dushku. The Last Man on Earth. This was my favorite show for a while. I was so upset when it got canceled. I guess live-action shows just don't do well on Fox Sunday nights mixed in with the cartoons.
Which profession attracts the worst kinds of people? Paparazzi. Hollywood producer, it seems, over and over and over. Politician, over and over. Edit. It is time to stop now, people. You gotta go home. Unpopular opinion, but nurses. There is a lot of toxic, abusive high school girl drama type behavior among nurses. It's such an important job, and about half the people doing it shouldn't be responsible for a yogurt, let alone a human being's life. I've seen some **T, man. Law enforcement. Double-edged sword because it attracts the best and the worst. The best in people who want to help, protect, and do good. The worst in people who want to exact authority over people. Power-hungry, holes who are insecure and have short fuses and low tolerance for defiance. If you can't handle someone defying you without losing your **T, you shouldn't be a cop. Edit. Spelling. The executives that run MLMs. I'm a consultant who had those executives as a client, and I promise this is correct. When our HR expert told them that they needed a policy on diversity, equity, and inclusion, the CEO responded that they didn't need anyone in DC telling them how to run their company. Like the HR expert wasn't even saying they needed it in an ethical way, just that they needed it to avoid lawsuits. The CEO still refused. So, legally exposing yourself to own the libs Seems like a pretty awful type of person. Stockbrokers. I have some friends who are stockbrokers. I love them, but man, they are some bullsh *T artists. And not like, oh, they're a good salesman and could sell you anything. No, it's like they make *T up as they go along and try to sound confident in what they say. I have met a couple people who were successful, lifelong stockbrokers. To be a successful, lifelong stockbroker, you actually have to like what you do. They all had crazy eyes, each and every one. Pyramid scheme property agents. I thought I wanted to be an architect, but then I met a bunch of architects, and architecture students, and architecture professors, and they were pretty much all A** holes. It was weird. I mean, how could it be so consistent? But there you have it. My mom worked in a prison. She said that a lot of the men in there for S3X offenses against children were looking for jobs like driving ice cream vans, dressing as Santa at shopping centers, etc., as they liked kids sitting on their laps, etc. Apparently, it's way more common than people would think. Reality TV. I'm a casino dealer. People losing money brings out the worst qualities in them, especially when I deal high-limit games. Plus, the pit boss supervisors won't throw a person out who is literally spending thousands. Doesn't matter what they do or say. The casino doesn't want to lose those kinds of patrons. They're catered to. They can be so awful to the dealers. The job has made me look at humanity in a completely different light, lol. Pro relationship tip: bring a date to the casino and see how they treat the dealer if they're losing. You'll see what kind of person they really are. I have about 10 years of experience in the industry. In my experience, literally every profession ever. Every job I've ever worked has had shy heads, liars, thieves, abusers, and just nasty people you're better off avoiding. It's a sad fact that at least one of every 5 people is a total *T head. Judging by the comments, there are just *TTI people everywhere. Who'd have thought? Sales. Ironically, I'm also getting into sales.
Who is a bad guy in history who actually wasn't a bad guy? That woman who spilled McDonald's coffee on her lap. In Braveheart, William Wallace gets betrayed by Robert the Bruce, which never happened. He was loyal to the end. That woman who was accused of kidnapping children because her kids didn't have her DNA, but in fact her uterus had different DNA than the rest of her body. Richard Jewell, security guard at the Atlanta Olympic who was blamed for the bombing. William Thomas Green Morton Ed broke defending his discovery of anesthesia. He was a dentist and didn't get much respect from the doctors at the time. IMO, one of the most important medical discoveries. Niccolò Machiavelli. Machiavelli didn't invent the idea of lying or ruthlessness. He made an observation about what worked and tried to get a new gig. Now his name is synonymous with heartless manipulator. Murdoch, on the Titanic. Dude went down saving lives. Cameron needlessly made him corrupt, then apologized by paying $5,000 to the guy's village or something. Sorry, I don't know why I wrote captain. The guy that Winzelt's fiancée tried to bribe to make room for him on the boat. Yeah, he was nothing like that. One to pocket money, that is. He stayed till the end. Swell fellow. Cameron did apologize and pay. If he'd done nothing wrong, why would he? Pharaoh Cleopatra, she was actually a pretty good ruler with her focusing more on her nation than just abusing her position for her own benefit. There's even some records saying that she wasn't even all that beautiful. She was, however, very intelligent with stuff like how she learned around 10 different languages. A dingo really ate her baby. Richard Jewell, initially lauded as a hero and a brave man who ran towards the bomb to help. Then the FBI and media turned on him and accused him of doing the bombing himself, because he was actually just as outlandishly brave and ran toward the bomb to help people. They took his truck for evidence. He had to go into hiding, made a villain by incompetent people. For years. Finally exonerated, and D*S shortly afterward. Captain Bligh. His mistake was being too soft rather than too harsh. He let his crew slack off while they were waiting to make sure the breadfruit trees would survive transplantation, and they mutinied when he put them back to work. Captain Hazelwood of the Exxon Valdez. He is often pictured on the helm of the Exxon, swaying drunkenly, going full throttle into the reef, talking like a pirate. What actually happened? Valdez's critical navigation equipment was out of commission. Fax sent to Exxon, and Exxon told them to sail instead. Coast Guard budget cuts removed vessel tracking in the area. Green and tired crew was on duty. Request was made to relief crew. It was denied. XO, who was on con at the time, was inexperienced on the passage, and neither requested pilotage. While Hazelwood did drink that day, he was not in command of the con at the time, and was in his quarters resting. Hazelwood made a comment that he needed a drink, because of how upset he was over the situation. Exxon's PR paid off the media to blame Hazelwood. However, Hazelwood was charged with only one charge, which was for pollution. He proved he was not a drunkard and retained his captain's license, even getting offers to sail again, which he turned down. The real villains are mass media, false news, and comedians, but Exxon's PRs spending power to keep the blame off them. Hazelwood passed away last year after the ANV of the spill. Random fact: the Valdez sailed until 2008 under different name Oriental Nicety.
You get $1,000 per person, Illinois. What is the fastest way you can become a billionaire? Put power outlet stickers on the walls at the airport. Go slightly under the speed limit on a long 2-lane road. I can't say that the advice "just be yourself" has always worked out well for me, but this sounds like it might be the exception. Start tweeting again. Baby shark do 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 do. People here are thinking too small. Cause a significant delay in the start of a big game, Super Bowl, World Series, Stanley Cup, etc. Everyone there and the millions watching at home will be annoyed. Boom. Instant billionaire. Make 3 unskippable ads in YouTube. Plus each ad with length of 60 seconds. Unskippable. Lots of beautifully annoying ideas in the comments, but nearly all of them are underestimating how hard it is to annoy a million people. As a software developer, the closest I got to reaching that kind of audience was when I worked at a big game studio on a heavily marketed AAA title. So this is what I'd do: on one and only one menu in the game, I would invert what the A and B button do. While players would rely on muscle memory to back out of menus using B and confirming selection using A, in that one menu, pressing B would confirm and pressing A would back out. Make a video on painting your car with house paint, and someone is next to me telling me how amazing it's looking. Going on the NYC subway during rush hour and soliciting money by singing or trying to do a shitty dance routine in a crowded car. Take a loan, buy an ad spot at the Super Bowl, say Bud Light sucks. I'll be a billionaire within minutes. Say you like Reddit NFTs. Start arguing with everyone on Reddit. Edit, y'all heard me, bitch. Be the dude at the airport terminal telling people they gotta do another loop, and can't wait there for people coming off their plane. I'd probably only have to do a half day at LaGuardia. Talk about CrossFit and then argue with the people on the CrossFit subs. Close off all but one lane on 95, right through the middle of DC, at 2 p.m. this Friday. Become the host of a popular talk show. You thought Corden was bad? Just wait. A lot of these comments are misunderstanding the scale here. At $1,000 per person, you need to annoy 1 million people to become a billionaire. Therefore you must simultaneously have a massive audience and be incredibly annoying, leading us to a simple path to becoming a billionaire. Be James Corden. Step 1. Find a bar with a jukebox that will let you play songs from online. Step 2. Spend no less than $100 to play Barbie Girl by Aqua for the entire night. Hop on the intercom at work with some Owazinhaya. Maybe throw in some death metal growls and pig squeals. I'm bound to annoy most people, so it'd be like $200,000. A long way from $1 billion though. Next I'd probably go to the movie theaters with some crash cymbals on a busy night and enter each theater disrupting the movie. Anywhere from 100-400 people per theater and around 24 screens per building. I could probably earn $8.50 mil per building. Drive around to all the theaters I know, which is about 10 theaters, but not all are as big as 24 screens, so after this I'd be at around $80 mil. Oh. I could hijack a bus and then park it sideways on the highway during long weekend rush hour traffic. Pop the tires and throw the keys in a sewer. That's probably another $400 million right there. Shit, I'm only about halfway there and running out of ideas. I could go to apartment complexes and pull the fire alarms in all the buildings. Between tenants and firemen wasting their time, that's probably 1,000 people per building, 4 buildings per complex. This is another $4 million per complex, and I know of about 5 complexes, so $20 million. Now I'm just over half at $500,200,000. Oh shit. I got it. Fuck up the power grid. Knock out a cell tower or something like that. If I knocked out power to my entire region, that's about 700,000 people, which would put me over the $1 billion. Damn, after all that thinking I should have started with this one. Knock out power to a couple regions and be done with it. Lol. I'm gonna go read some of the other replies now. Very curious what others have said. Edit. Either I'm the only one who took this seriously or nobody else on Reddit knows how much $1 billion is. Lol. Alternatively, go to Tokyo and stand in the train doors at rush hour, refusing to move aside at every stop. If we consider that I will block 10 people coming in and 10 coming out, or 20 people every, say, 3 minutes, it adds up to $400,000 per rush hour. I then do this for 4 days, so I accumulate $1.6 million. At this point I hire 32,000 people to come to a venue promising a famous headliner who never shows up, and only pay them $50 each, which ensures that their patience will be low, but that they will still appear. At this point I perform a very long, terrible and offensive stand-up act, and play the violin poorly into a feedbacking microphone. If I annoy only 60% of these people, which is a low bet, I will have $19,200,000 within the first 5-7 days. At this point I purchase a primetime US television advertising spot using my money, and I hire creatives to make the most grating advertisement possible, featuring myself. If I only reach 5 million people, and only 20% are annoyed, I will far surpass the $1 billion within 2 weeks at the maximum. You have to make a 10-minute video using house paint, stencils, tape and hot glue. You should also have a friend pretend to be the owner of the car, and this is going to be a prank. Friend gets out of the car, and you have an accomplice distract them in conversation for the next 9 meters. 57s you fuck about looking at the camera and smiling winking. As you do random shit to the car with your materials the whole time saying how amazing it will look. In the last 3 seconds of the video, you start to remove the stencils to reveal your art, and the friend finally notices you've done something. Cut to an extreme close-up of 3 of the car with nothing done to it. End the video without ever showing the full result or reaction. Witnessed this recently. Dude went full acoustic guitar W vocals on the 4 around 7 AM. I would have paid the guy $1,000 to fool Mao. Shout out to the one guy who spoke up, yelling it's early and then going back to sleep.
You meet your 13-year-old self, but you can only tell them 3 words. What do you say and why? Never start gambling. She won't change. Stop copying others. Bitcoin hits 50K. Brush your teeth. Invest Amazon 2003. Don't trade Charizard. Nat has herpes. Get brother help. Edit. Hey all, I just want to say how touched I am by all of the replies to this. 3 words brought so many people together. That is amazing if you think about it. 3 words. Many interpretations, all revolving around a similar state of mind. I just want to add 3 more words, and a gesture I think about daily when I think of my brother. I love you. Hug. Use these with family and friends as much as you can. Tomorrow can be too late. Love Dad more. Edit. I don't ever check my Reddit notifications. I never expected this to blow up. My dad was diagnosed with cancer on my 13th birthday and passed away less than 3 months later. To everyone who has lost or is losing a parent, I'm sorry. You all know those words don't really do anything, but I am sorry. It's an awful thing to lose a parent. A word of advice. Remember everything. Don't make them out to be a saint. My dad was an angry guy. He up sometimes. He snapped too fast. He made mistakes. But that didn't mean he didn't love me any less, or that he wasn't a great dad. It means that he was human. Every mistake he made was a lesson for me then, or a lesson for the future, if I ever have my own kids. Appreciate the good and the bad, because at the end of the day, it's a memory you have. And if anyone ever needs to vent or talk or ask questions, then please reach out. Don't marry Jeff. Grinning. Brush your teeth. Don't smoke. Dumb *****. Edit. Yes, I know don't is technically 2 words when written out. But I'm not writing a letter or note to 13-year-old chef _and_VA. I would be speaking it out loud. And don't smoke. Dumb ***** is 3 words when spoken. Don't forget about. Talk to people. Enjoy your childhood. Yes, Kimmy, California. My sister wanted to move to California near where I was living. My life was really complicated at the time, and I really discouraged it. My marriage was a mess, and I was afraid it would make it worse. She stayed where she was. About a year later, she was killed by a drunk driver. My marriage ended. I would do literally anything to still have my sister here. Stay off ATVs, rolled a 4-wheeler when I was 16, left leg has never been the same. I work in a pediatric operating room in an area where ATVs are popular. Anytime the weather is nice and the kids are out of school, the number of add-on surgeries we have for ATV injuries is mind-boggling. 4-year-old shattered femur, ATV rollover, 8-year-old broken left arm, ATV rollover, 13-year-old ATV ejection, emergency cranie, shattered pelvis, degloving of the leg, brain bleeds, punctured lungs, on and on and on. So much agony, so many kids. It's easily the #1 cause of emergent surgery we do. In my book, putting a kid on an ATV is about the same as giving an infant a loaded gun for a pacifier. I'm really only replying to you because I hope at least one person will read this thread, change their mind, and keep a kid out of the OR morgue.